Welcome to the Code with Jason meetup. Today is a mentorship session for our friend Srinath. And the way we're going to approach this is, at least for starters, um, we don't have a pre-established topic, and so we're going to work on a project of mine for a bit, and kind of see where the wind takes us. Um, so Srinath, are you familiar with this project I've been working on called SaturnCI?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, so dear viewer, if you haven't seen this, it's a continuous integration platform that I'm working on. Um, and I haven't shared this with anybody yet, but now that my book is done, my book Professional Rails Testing that I've been working on for a long time, now that that's done, um, I'm like, what now? What do I want to do with my life? And I think this isn't a final decision, but I think I want to go all in on Saturn CI and upgrade it from distant third priority to very close second priority after consulting. So before it was like primary focus, it's consulting because that's how I make my income. Secondary focus is the book. Now that the book is done, Saturn CI can get upgraded to second priority. Again, this is tentative. It's not a final decision, but that's the direction I'm thinking about right now. Okay. And then what is it? It's a continuous integration platform. And I use that term loosely. It's really just a test runner. But I've been working on this for the last like a year or something like that, just very lazily because I've been working on it in these sessions and nowhere else. But lately I've started to spend more of my free time on this. Anyway, I have a list of to-dos and bugs and stuff like that. So the way I'm approaching this is like, how can I get from this to first customer as fast as possible? Like, what stands between where the product is now and getting a customer to be able to use it? And I don't want to do anything that's not in that path because I want to be as efficient with my time as possible. So right now, um, the product does not have a production environment. So obviously nobody can use it if there's no production environment. So that's one thing I'm getting set up. That's kind of my first priority. You can see my list of to-dos here. So production environment is to-do number one. And then as you can see, I have a list of bugs, and then some other stuff. But today, maybe let's do a little bit of work on the production environment. Okay, I got a message in the chat here. At the end, can you share your Rails journey and some tips for someone who is into this since the last 2 years? How do you find opportunities to work and any suggestions around here? Wow, that is a big topic. Um, how about this, Puneet, if you're up for it? I'm going to give you my scheduling link and we can schedule a session totally dedicated to this topic because I think it's a big enough topic that that it calls for its own dedicated session. And apparently Calendly is not working right now, but I'll wait for that and I'll give you that link in a minute. Okay. Anyway, production environment. Sorry, this is coming up now. There we go. Whoops, sorry, wrong link, wrong link. There. There, Puneeth, you can use that second link there to schedule a session and we can dedicate that whole session to that topic if you want, obviously. Okay.
Yeah, sure, Jason. I would be happy to join.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, okay, I think the link will have the details on the timings, right?
Sorry.
I think the link will contain the details about the timings and everything.
Could you say that a little slower for me?
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to know, like, if that link contains the, timings to at what time to join the call.
I still didn't catch it. The link will have slots like at this time, Sundays at 9 a.m. Eastern. And it'll also contain the Zoom link. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Yeah,
Should
I
we
think that,
select? Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly that. I think Puneet, the way Calendly works is you
Hmm.
choose a slot that is free and book in. Jason, that's how you expect it to work, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Sanjay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So for my infrastructure for this project, I'm using Kubernetes. I set up a Kubernetes infrastructure for this project way back when. And then I deleted it to save on costs. But now I'm ready to commit to the project, and I don't mind losing some money for a while because it's not going to be that much money anyway. Um, and I'm kind of getting back into the swing of things. I don't remember how anything works. Um,
Jason, sorry, can I
yeah,
ask a question? You mentioned
yeah,
you chose Kubernetes.
uh-huh.
What was the reason for going for Kubernetes?
Good question. I used Kubernetes at one of my last jobs.
Ah, okay.
We cycled through a few different infrastructures. At first, we used AWS Elastic Beanstalk, which I would not recommend to anyone because ideally a platform gives you leverage and it
Yeah.
gives you flexibility, and Elastic Beanstalk gives you neither.
Hmm.
And then we switched from that to Ansible, and that was nice. But the thing about Ansible, at least the way we were using it, is you kick off a deploy and it starts running a deploy in production, carries out the steps. Um, and that poses some risk because the way containerized deployments work is instead of doing all the steps in production, you do the build steps locally. You build your image locally, and then you just pop the image into a fresh container in production. So you're not changing anything in production. You're just keeping the existing production containers exactly the way they are, and you're adding a fresh new production container. And then you can perform some certain health checks on that new container. And once that new one is determined to be healthy, bit by bit, it starts routing traffic to that new one. Um, and then if anything's wrong, you can say, okay, cancel it, put traffic back to the old one, and then just kill the new one. Um, and to me, that's a much less risky way of handling it. And so that's what I really like about that. Um, to kind of summarize the reasons for it, stability and reliability are the reasons I like Kubernetes.
Okay. So one related question, so I
Hmm.
suppose in an ideal world, I guess you are creating software that those who buy it can deploy anywhere and take it from there. Is that
Hmm.
right? Ah, okay. So that makes sense, why you are using Kubernetes and things. Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to kubectl namespaces. Get namespaces. I think that's the syntax. It's being kind of sluggish. Um, while that's going, okay, here we go. So I have this staging namespace because right now I want to set up a staging and a production environment, starting with staging. So I have this staging namespace, and I've been attempting to deploy to staging, but there's been this problem. Um, it has been saying, yeah, here it is, missing secret key base for production environment. And this is kind of a mystery because I was never getting this error before when I set up the Kubernetes environment originally. So I'm a little surprised to see this. Um, but I looked on Stack Overflow and I have some ideas. So I don't have a secret key base set here. So let's do that. Um, I have this dummy database name, etc. I think I can do dummy secret key base. And let's see if just that much takes care of it. I have this deploy script that I run. So this is performing a Docker build right now. And what I'm remembering right now is that when I did some of these earlier videos, when I was doing the Kubernetes stuff, deployments would never work when I was on a Zoom call. It was apparently a bandwidth issue. It would always work fine when I was
Okay.
off a call, but never when I was on a call. So we might have to abandon this effort, but we'll at least let it go a little bit. And it looks like it did not run into the error this time. So that's good. Now it's just a question of whether it will successfully push the image that it just built. So if I go up here, and I know I'm showing my access token, I can rotate that key later, so that's no big deal.
No, same error.
So, well, this is the old one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just scrolled up. So
Hmm.
we have this error on assets precompile here, but now if we look here, okay, yeah, we see this precompile step, but no error.
Right.
All right, and here we might just be waiting forever if we wait for this. So let's let this do its thing, and then we can move on to a different task and come back if this finishes during the call. Okay, so I'm going to close these tabs, which I think is always a good habit in programming. Um, and I'm gonna address some of these bugs. Now, there's one of these bugs that um, seems prominent to me because I can see it right now. So see this build? This build is stuck and running. Most of these builds take like 3 or 4 minutes. This one's been stuck for 36 minutes. And when I click this build, we get this raw error. So that's no good.
Okay.
So I'm going to fix this, and I think I'm going to write a test um, that fails when the bug is present.
Got.
So I happen to have this code fresh in my mind because I recently worked on it. It's in builds controller. So I'll pop that open, close these tabs. Okay. So in this show action here, let's see, that's too big. Okay. In this show action, okay, so I should explain how this works. Um, so you can navigate among these builds here. Each row in this list is a build. But then when you click on a build, what you go to on the right is not a build. What you go to on the right is a job. So every build has one or more jobs. The default parallelism is two. So right now, every build has two jobs. You can see in the URL here, the URL we're at is localhost 3000 slash job slash a certain job ID slash test output. So that's because we're on the test output tab and we're visiting this particular job. If I click this other job tab, we get a different job ID. So the way that I conceptualize this screen is that we're looking at a job right now. That's why it's slash job ID.
Got.
So when you click on a build, the behavior is that it says, okay, let's go to this build. But in order to do that, we need to actually pick one of the build's jobs and go to the page for that job. And if there are any failed jobs, we want to go to that job first. Because one of the things that I hate about CircleCI and I think GitHub Actions too, is if a test fails, you go to the page for that job or whatever, and you can't easily see the failure. You have to like scroll a bunch and stuff. So for this, if I click on this failed one, see, it takes me straight to job two because job two is the only one that has failures. Because obviously, if the build failed, what I probably want to see when I click on it is what failed. So it doesn't take me here to job one. That doesn't show me any interesting information about the failure. It takes me straight to job two, which had the failure.
Oh,
That's why we have this line here that says failed jobs equals blah, blah, blah. So either go to failed jobs. We either go to the first failed job if there is one, or we go to just the first job in general. But what seems to be the problem is that sometimes there are no jobs and it will error out if there are no jobs. So I need to make it so it can gracefully handle the case where there are no jobs. Okay. And let's think a second. Why might there be no jobs? Well, something malfunctioned in the system and jobs were supposed to be created, but there were none. And if we click on this, it can't go to /jobs/something. So we'll have to do something else. What that something else is, I'm not sure yet. Okay. But anyway, I think I'm going to write a request spec for this because we only need to test the redirect. We don't necessarily need to get the DOM involved. And if we do get the DOM involved, that'll add an extra expense to the test. So we can do a request spec as to not incur that expense. Now, my question for myself is there already a test for this? Is there already a request spec? So let's see. This is build navigation. So let's go to spec, builds. Okay, in builds request, we have this show build spec. Yeah, and I think this is exactly the test we want. Okay, so we have cases now for a failed job is present. I'm going to say no failed job is present. And then we can add another case for no jobs are present. Good guess. Cursor. I've been using Cursor lately and I really like it.
oh, I've been meaning to try it. Haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah, I really like it. Okay, redirects to the build. Is that right? Is that what we want?
Mm.
I don't think it has to redirect anywhere. We just want it to show this build. Um, I'm just gonna say it does not raise an error. Yeah. Yeah. And I expect this test to fail because right now it does raise an error. I wish I knew the VS Code command to run an RSpec test. I have looked it up and I couldn't easily find it. Um, yeah, it's annoying. Spec builds, build list, request, show build spec. Okay. Okay, what do we got? Expected no exception, got this, which is the same exact error that we get when we try it in the browser. So that's good. So I think we can do this. Um, return unless build.jobs.any. Let's see what that gives us. Okay. Missing a template for blah, blah, blah. That is not surprising. So we can add one. No jobs. We'll just say that. And this can go in app, views, builds, show. Okay. Okay. Um, that's fine, but like we want to be able to see the shell of the page and stuff. Okay, so let's look at the job show controller. Okay. So what do we have for the job show view? Okay. Hmm. So what happens if we just copy paste this same thing? Whoops, we gotta actually go here. Okay, yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah, because we would still need this build list. So it's complaining because it doesn't have the build records it needs in order to build this build list here. Because here in the normal job show action, we say get the job, the build, the project, and then here we assign this build list. So we still need all this stuff. Hmm. So this leaves us with some uncomfortable options because like we could just copy paste all this stuff and put it in here, but I don't really want to do that. So let's see. Let's see. Okay, and hang on a second. This stuff, this is rendering the job show template, which we don't want to do because it doesn't apply. We don't have a job. So we just want the build list. So let's see. Out of all this stuff, we don't need the job. We can't have the job. We do need the build and the project. I don't know if we need this stuff or not. We do need the build list. We do need the current tab name. Job output stream, I don't know. Build filter component. We do need that. Okay, this is a little less straightforward than I thought. Another option that's coming to mind, I don't love it, but another option that comes to mind is to just still take us to the job controller show action, but just let the job be blank. But I don't like that because the case of a blank job is really an edge case. And I don't want to have to pollute this code with a lot of if there's really a job kind of stuff. So I'd prefer to approach it a different way if we can. Hmm. So let's see. Where does all this stuff come from? Params partial comes from the URL. That's this test output thing in this case. These other params come from query string variables. Params ID comes from the URL. Okay. Hmm. I'm thinking. Let me try an experiment real quick. If I do just copy all this stuff, what happens? Okay, so that doesn't work. Let's see exactly why. Build filter component. You know what? I said that this is an edge case, and because it's an edge case, maybe it's fine for it to just be ugly. This is like
Yeah. But
something that's
that sounds like
uh
a reasonable approach. Yeah, absolutely. If it is an edge case, let us leave it for later, to prettify. Yeah.
yeah, or maybe even never, because like this is
Yeah.
something that should never really even happen. Um, okay, I think I like forgot to save it or something. I don't know what happened. Oh no, okay, so I'm returning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, right. I don't want this. I want the way it was before, just no jobs. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's make this a little more explanatory. Um, okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's go to our test. Let's run it again. Okay, great. I'm happy enough with that. Oh, whoops. I think I forgot to commit what I had before. And this is why you always review what you're about to commit so that you don't make a mistake. Okay. Secret key base. Add secret key base to Docker file dot production. Okay. And then now say handle case where build has no jobs. Okay. And it's a little annoying because I want to delete this job, but I'll just do that on the console. Um, in fact, I'll do that right now.
Also, should the job be saying running instead of no jobs in their status?
Yeah, the status shouldn't be running. But again, it's like it's
Yeah.
wrong that it doesn't even have any jobs. Like the whole thing just should never be. And we should fix the root cause. But in this case, I just want to get rid of the symptom. Okay, did that work? It did work. Okay, wonderful. Okay, now that that issue's addressed, let's see if our, nope, our push has not finished. It probably never will. So let's keep going on these bugs and stuff. Okay, rerunning a job shows it as passed. I fixed that already. Builds that error out show as passed. Yes. Okay, so I'll show you that. So right now in SaturnCI, the project I've been running mostly is SaturnCI itself. I have this other project called Panda. Um, and I tried to get it set up you can see that these first couple jobs say passed, but they didn't pass. They error it out. And that's obviously a bug. So let's address that. I'm going to go to this Panda project again. And right now, everything in Panda is working. Um, so let me go back to a version where it's not working. Um, let's see. And what was this error? Builds that error out shows passed. Fix errored build status. Okay. And that will take a second to do its thing. But when it does, the build will error out and we'll see how this shows up. I fixed a different status bug earlier today or yesterday or something. And for all I know, that will fix this also. So we will see. All right, this will take a minute. So we will wait. And yeah, again, this is probably never going to finish. All right, while we wait for this, anybody have any questions or comments or anything I want to bring up?
So I noticed in the tests you were using let with a bang.
Mhm.
I didn't see any lets without a bang. So any specific reason? I
Yeah,
mean,
definitely. Um, so RSpec's let without a bang is a feature that I actually think should not even exist. Um, the reason is, okay, so let me explain how let works in case anybody doesn't know. Um, let creates a memoized method. So yeah, we have let build here. Um, this is basically the same as doing this. So doing let, without a bang, doing let build is the same as defining this memoized method. So this part here, create build, doesn't get invoked until the first time build is referenced, the first time it's used.
got it.
Let with a bang is equivalent to defining that method and then calling it. And the reason I don't like the non-bang version is because with the bang version, things get executed in the sequence in which they appear. But with the non-bang version, you never know when this is actually going to happen. And most of the time, like 95% of the time, it's no problem. But in the 5% of the time, when it creates confusion, it creates serious confusion. And so I never use it because there's really no benefit to the memoization. Um, it's all risk and no benefit. So that's why I never use it.
Makes sense.
Okay, so this is running. Right now it's still doing the bundle install and all that stuff, it looks like. Okay, I think we'll be waiting a bit more. Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
So I was thinking, like, what is your opinion when where tests connect to the DB for running and where um, tests don't connect to the DB? Like I have in organizations I've worked at, there has been a very polar opinion. Some places where they like, no, the test should not connect to the DB. It makes them slow, so we just should not do that. And I've seen places where they have rewritten the whole test loop, which is a fairly large one, to do just nothing that connects to the DB on the just for the speed of it. So
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, um, so I talk about this in my book, Professional Rails Testing. Um, in the section where I talk about like a common question is how do you decide what kinds of tests to write for what features and stuff like that? Um, and my answer is that I think about all these things in terms of costs and benefits. So is it good or is it bad to connect to the database? Neither one. It's just costs and benefits. Um, um, what's the cost of connecting to the database? Among other things, it makes the tests slower. It's also a dependency. It's just another thing to go wrong, all that stuff. But the main thing I think about is that it makes the test slower. And so if I don't need to use the database, I absolutely won't. And I try to use the database as little as possible in my tests. But if we go all the way to the extreme and think about like system specs that involve the whole browser, those are the only kind of tests that show you the whole system is working together. And so you could have a whole suite of tests that don't involve the database, but you could have no database and all your whole test suite would still pass, but your application wouldn't work at all because it doesn't even have a database. Whereas if you have tests that involve the database, it forces that part to be working. Same thing with system specs. You could have an entire suite of model specs that pass, but then your application could like not even have a UI, and it would obviously be unusable, but all the tests would still pass. So those system specs give you the assurance that everything's working together. So one way to go could be that you could just write system specs for absolutely everything, but that's not economical. Maybe we could do that if system specs were free, but they're very much not free. They're very expensive to run. Um, and so we have to make some compromises. So I like to have system specs for the happy path and maybe one error case. Um, But then for all the different possible permutations of the logic and stuff, there's no reason to keep hitting the browser over and over again because that stuff's going to be the same. No reason to incur that expense over and over again for no additional benefit. So I'll drop down to the model level and do that. Similar idea with the database stuff. I want to have some tests that exercise the database because that way you can show that it's all working, but not everything. Uh, the database isn't relevant to everything. Like for example, for some of my tests that test the build and job status logic, I just want to test the logic. I'm not concerned about anything to do with the database. So not all those tests involve the database because it doesn't even make sense to bring that into the picture. It's just all cost and no benefit. So that's how I think about that stuff.
got it. So like to sum it up, use them as sparingly as possible, but have them because they will catch things which are pretty critical.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Right.
Okay. Well, I see now that this bug has been reproduced.
Yes.
It's clearly erroring out, but it says passed. So let's look into why that is. So here's the build status logic. Return running if there are any running jobs or if there are no jobs. Run failed if any of the jobs are failed. Run passed if the jobs are all passed. Otherwise, return failed. Okay, so obviously it's doing this. So it must be that one or more of the jobs are giving a status of passed. So let's look at the job logic. Return running if not finished. Return passed if finished and not failed. Okay, so let's look at the logic for failed. Okay, if the test report includes failed, then it's failed. Okay. I think instead of checking to see if it passed, sorry, instead of checking to see if it failed, we should check to see if it passed. So how
If
do we
it's
know if something passed? Sorry, what's that?
uh, no, I was saying we could check for the exit code, right? So for passed we would get 0, and for failed we would get 1.
Yeah, let's see if we're even capturing that. So here we have our test output, test report, and system logs. We don't, at least right now, have the sorry, we don't have the what's the word? Exit code.
Exit code, yeah.
Yeah. What about test report? What is the test report and what do we return? Okay, test results file name. Oh, okay. So the test results or the test report is this.
Got it.
So in this case, what's in the test report? Nothing. Okay. So here's an idea. Um, we can say return. Wait. Like I said, let's change this to past.
Got it.
And we can say um, return false unless test report is present. Let's see if that fixes this. Oh, this is cached. So um, let's do this instead. Let's write a test that I was going to do this anyway, but let's write a test that fails when these conditions are present. Okay, so the test report is blank. Oh, this is not the one I want. Okay. Okay, there's a lot of stuff here. And I think this test is starting to get hard to understand. It's already 100 lines. And a lot of the stuff has to do with status stuff, but not all of it does. I think I want a dedicated test file just for the status stuff. So let's do that. Um, by the way, just out of my normal obligation for self-promotion, my book has a whole chapter on writing understandable tests. I think it's something we could stand to pay a lot more attention to in the Ruby community. Okay,
Yeah.
so builds status. Okay, build status. I already have a build status folder. And then in the build status folder, I have a system directory. Let's add a model directory. Okay. And we can create a new file. So this can go in spec, builds, build status, models, build status spec. Okay. So we can move some of this stuff. To here. Let's make sure this passes. Okay, we're good. Okay, say move tests. Okay, so the problem before was that the build spec here was losing cohesion, I think. Cohesion to me is when everything in a file, it's all about the same topic. Um, and when I moved the status stuff into its own test, now this build status spec has very high cohesion. Everything in it is something to do with build status. All right. So I'm going to add a case. And honestly, this is probably job status. Job status. Yeah. Okay. So I still think this was a positive change, but I think this is maybe not the place where we want to write our new test. Do we have some status stuff here? We certainly do. Okay, so just as we have a build status folder, how about let's have a job status folder? Let's see. So we have builds. We have builds, build status. We don't have job status. So let's create that.
But there is no class called job status, right? Or model. We are just making this change for ease of understanding.
Correct.
But
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of most Rails apps, almost all of them, they have like a one-to-one relationship between models and tests, but it doesn't have to be that way.
got it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna grab all this stuff. Whoops, I got lost there. Okay. Okay, so this goes in spec, jobs, job status, models, job status spec. Okay. Okay, interesting. We get failures. Okay, there's no job. So there's part of this that we need to carry over. Okay, we still get failures. Undefined failure. Okay. Oh, yeah, interesting. Okay, is this used anywhere else? Don't think so. Okay, so this was a helper method from the other test that I didn't carry over. Okay. Undefined success. Okay. We'll need to grab this other helper method called success. Now everything passes. What about the original job spec? Okay, looks like we're good. All right, so I'm going to commit that. All right, so we haven't made any actual behavior changes yet. All we've done is move some tests around. But now that we have this job status spec on its own, um, report is empty. Okay, so when the report is empty, I think we actually want it to say failed, but okay, how do we know if it's running or failed? Hmm, I'm thinking we might need more information that we have than we have. I do see the exit code here at the bottom. What happens for a genuinely passed suite? Oh, we have the exit code here. Okay. So we can probably go by that.
Yep. We can just find that specific string. If it is 0 or 1, that should.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's do this. I said I wanted to change it from not failed to passed. Let's do
Yeah.
that first of all.
Mhm.
We should get some failures because of that. Well, let's do this. Uh-huh. And then if I change this to not, does it pass? Okay. In the spirit of atomic commits, I'm going to commit this. Oh, let's do the build status test too. Okay, I'm glad I did that because we have some failures here. What did I do? Okay. Okay, undefined method failed for job. Okay. Builds controller line 16.
Job dot failed. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe we want both a failed and a passed method.
And passed.
Um, but I think pass should be the one where the actual logic lives. Okay, great. And I want to check on these runs. Okay, this one at least passed. Okay. So what was I forgot what I was even doing. Oh yeah, the exit code. Okay, so first let's add an exit code method. Whoops. Exit code. Okay. job.update test report, and we can have this here. It has an exit code of 1. These autocomplete suggestions are not working. Maybe my internet connection isn't great right now. Expect job.exit code to equal 1. Okay, the scrolling is weird in this, I feel like. Undefined method exit code, of course. So we'll define it. And then it'll probably say expected 1 got nil. Oh, private. Yeah. Okay, and now it should probably say expected 1 got nil. Yep. Okay, and I wish that cursor was working, because this would be really handy to get the AI generated solution here. Oh, let's see. Can I do this? Um, Parse the exit code. Okay. I didn't ask for this. Okay, so that appears to work. All right, and we can commit that. Add exit code. Okay. And then for past, okay, so we can say context exit code is 0. Let's see, hang on a second. We don't want to go by the report anymore. Instead of saying report is empty, let's do exit code is nil. And here we can say allow job to receive exit code and return nil. Yeah. Okay. So let's run that. Okay, and I see it's a little after the hour, so I'll wrap up shortly. Okay, that apparently passes, but it seems to pass only coincidentally. Okay, report is success. Instead of this, we want to say exit code is 0. And we don't even need, do we need job finished? I don't know. I'm just going to leave it like that. That passes, but again, I think it's coincidental. Here, instead of report as a failure, let's do exit code is not 0. Uh-huh. Okay, not surprised that that fails. Scrolling is like buggy, I think. Okay, expected failed and got passed. So here I think we can go to status and go to past and say exit code dot zero. Okay, now everything passes. Now let's do the same thing we did before and run the build status tests. Not surprisingly, we're getting some failures. Okay,
That's showing that.
undefined. Sorry.
No. I'm saying, sorry. I was saying they're matching for nil.
Yeah, undefined method match for nil class. So we can easily fix that, obviously. Yep. Okay, still getting some failures. Undefined method zero for nil class. Also not surprising. Okay, zero. We can just do this. Okay. Okay, so we can say make it so test pass failure goes by exit code. That seems so much more appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, and now these builds have a cached status. So let me get rid of the cache status. Okay. Job equals job dot find. Build equals job dot build. Build dot cached status. Oh, the cache status is nil. Okay. Job dot status. Okay, the job status is failed. Build dot status failed. Oh yeah, okay. Rails dot cache dot clear. Let's try that. Huh, this still says passed. Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna get a rerun going and we'll see if that passes or fails.
Yeah.
Okay, so this build has the right status. The build status is failed.
It's just displaying it wrong.
Yeah, so let's see if we can figure out why that is. Um, okay, build list item. Status. Okay. Um, okay, cache build dot updated at. Let's do this. Build dot touch. There we go. Okay, great. That's nice to see. Obviously, it should have a status of failed if the build is failed. Oh, and here we get a failure. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is failing even though it should be passing. That is interesting. So let's take a look at this.
Yeah, it could be probably because it cached the old status. I'm
Let's
not sure.
find out. Okay, so this job says it's failed, and the exit code says nil. That is interesting. Okay, so the test report. Oh, wait. What does the job's um, exit code go off of? No. Oh, test report. That's not what we want to go off of. We want to go off of the test output. Let's see if that changes things. Okay, perfect. Great. I think we still need to touch the build. Job that build that touch. Okay, great. Um,
Then how was it working on Panda then? That's
well, I think it was just doing it failed more than when it should. Like it was, I think it might have been always going to failed.
okay. Yeah, it was probably gonna fail like all the time. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I want to do now is go to this one and see if it says passed or failed. Okay, still failed. Job.build.touch still says failed. Great. Okay. Um, this says failed, but let's see if I do a touch on this one, does it go to passed? Oh, I wasn't even looking at this. Okay, that's just a plain old legitimate failure. Okay. Um, show build spec. Okay. Oh, and before that, even let's finish what we're doing here. Um, okay, it was going off of test report. We want that to be test output. Interesting, it fails. Okay, expected job.build.reload cache status to be passed, but now it's failed. Okay, line 62. Oh, yeah, we don't have an exit code for this one, or we don't have a zero exit code more specifically. Um, why would we be expecting it to be passed anyway? I don't know. It really should be failed. Okay, so that fixes that one. What about this one? Show build spec, line 10. Okay. expected it to be a redirect to test output, but it was a redirect to, oh, it's just a different job. Oh, probably because it's redirecting to the first failed one. Okay, I see. Unfailed job. Okay, so we need to change this. Right now it says the test report. The failed job is because the test report says failed. We need to change this so it says exit code. Oh no, but that's not a okay,
Yeah,
we need to do
that's
this a different way.
um, you'll have to add it to test output, that string, exit code one. You run
Yeah.
that.
Um, let's do this. Let's add a trait. Wonderful. Okay. Um, I don't know. I'm just gonna say fix bug. Okay. I'm way over time, but I'm gonna at least wait for this to pass. I'm gonna wait for this to finish because I want the satisfaction of being able to see it say passed. And
Yeah.
just to be extra sure, I'm gonna rerun one of these and verify that it says failed if it fails. Okay, and while that's going, I'm going to take a look at this. Okay, so I'm going to assume that the test suite will pass. I'm going to cross this off the list. Builds that error out, show as passed. Oh, and this will be a tricky one. Gem caching seems not to be working properly. So we're not going to go all the way into this. I'm just going to explain real quick what it is. Um, at the beginning of each build, it installs all the gems for the project. Yeah, so you can see here that it installs all the gems. But that's wasteful because most of the time your gems aren't going to change. So it can just cache that stuff. And the caching was working at some point in time, but it seems not to be working, at least not working properly anymore. And I don't think it was ever actually working properly in all cases. So we're going to have to figure that one out. That's going to be a big can of worms. And I think that's why it takes almost 5 minutes sometimes. It used to take like 2 minutes. When we get a cache hit, it takes like 2 minutes. But when we get a cache miss, it takes like 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, maybe we can really briefly touch on the job stuff that you asked about, Puneeth. Um, basically, how do you how do you get a job in this job market? Is that kind of what you're asking, Puneeth?
Yes, Jason. Basically, like, yeah, how do we know what would be their expectation and how to find the jobs?
Yeah. Um, again, obviously a huge topic. Um, but one comment I'll make is I feel like the job market is different now. Obviously, a lot of people feel that way. It's a lot harder to get a job. I don't know if this is a temporary situation or if this is a permanent situation. I kind of think it might be permanent. Um, or at least it'll last for a very long time. Who knows what's going to happen in 50 years, you know? But I have a strong suspicion that this issue isn't going to go away within the next 1 or 2 years at least. Um, I can give my response to the situation. Um, I kind of decided that the job market is a losing game, and I'm not going to play that game anymore. Um, I decided to go on my own. Okay, and this is still failing. Um, so maybe this can be what we pick up next time. Bug. Oh, what?
It says passed now.
Okay. Past test suites temporarily show up as failed. That was weird, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to fix that. This one says failed as it should. Hmm. Oh, that's, it's even nicer than just saying it's passed. It's like, oh, it's failed. Oh no, it really passed. That like lifts my spirits even more than if it just said passed right from the beginning. Anyway, to continue what I was saying, Puneeth, I decided just like, screw this. I'm not going to try to get a job anymore. I'm just going to go freelance. And I've actually had nice success with that. Um, and so I wonder if that's going to be the answer for a lot of people is to go freelance instead of try to get a job the traditional way. Anyway, if you want to grab a time on my calendar, Puneeth, maybe I already did. We can dedicate a full session to that. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me for this session, and I'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank